What's up, everyone? We are back on deck number 17 with Mr. Brandon Slay. This is actually part 2. We talked so much last week that we need to get together and talk some more. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Ben. Thanks for having me for part 2.
Yeah, actually, I meant to mention this last week, but I look in your background. You have a bunch of cool pictures. But I believe I have that exact map up on my I should just. Oh man. Okay, I'm scared. I have this. I have hardlined in, so our internet's good. I feel like if I turn the computer on, and it would unlock it. So I believe I have that map in your background, right on my wall over here. So I love that map. I'm trying to see all the different places. You got it looks like a whole bunch on the East Coast over there, huh?
Well, when I started working for USA Wrestling in 2009, and clearly a big part of that job, coaching Team USA, is you take the guys all around the world. So we clearly go to places like Armenia and Georgia and Azerbaijan and Iran, but we also go places like Madrid and Paris, and we go to fun places too. So as I started traveling, it was kind of tough to keep up with all the places you go. So it was just a good way to kind of keep up with our travels. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so just to catch people up, obviously, if you just go to the RUDIS YouTube channel, you can see part 1 of this. It's episode number 16. We just kind of talked about Brandon's competitive career and all that. And then kind of where we left off was, we started talking about your time at the Olympic Training Center. And you brought up how you guys started making that transition to bringing out younger athletes. And we kind of mentioned that, but didn't dig into it. So we're going to talk about that today. I'd like to probably talk about some of those athletes because some of them are, greatest of all time type. And then also, obviously, your transition to Penn RTC, and then obviously talk about the whole RTC system, the picture. So let's get into it. You start in, 2011, 2012, bring out younger athletes to the Olympic Training Center.
So we did. So with Zeke Jones was the national coach, and Bill Zadok and I, we were the assistant national coaches. And during that period of time, Bill Zadok was responsible for the national development program. He was the national development coach. And I was more focused on the senior level guys with Zeke. But one thing we all started doing together was that we started having world team camps, Olympic camps, national team camps. We started inviting the best high school kids in the country who were cadets and juniors to come spend time training with the nation's best. So in no particular order, I remember having a camp out in Arizona State, and we had Spencer Lee out and Mark Hall out, and those guys, they start wrestling with our world team. And you take a freshman in high school, a sophomore in high school, 14, 15, 16-year-old, and they're wrestling with a 26-year-old Olympian or Olympic champion, then, that freshman or sophomore in high school, their development curve is going to become much more steep. And so once we started seeing those guys gain more confidence and just compete at a much higher level in practices, then it was like, we need to do this every single time. And that was just a component of whether USA Wrestling would give us the beds. Thankfully the USOC and USA Wrestling said, hey, we've never done this before, but this amount of young guys, cadets and juniors that you want to have training with our Olympic team, it seems kind of risky because of their age, but thankfully they believed in that. And then, you just start seeing Mark Hall out every single summer. He would stay the whole summer with us at the OTC. Mm-hmm. And we saw his development, cadet world champion, 2-time junior world champion, NCAA champion as a true freshman. So that speaks for itself. Yeah. And so then you had Kyle Snyder come out, give up his senior year of high school from Maryland to come spend the whole entire year and a half plus with us. And you put a Kyle Snyder at 17 with Dustin Kilgore and John Reeder, who were both 24-year-old NCAA champions. Yeah. Well, Kyle Snyder clearly started developing. And again, we saw him become the youngest world champion in United States history as a 19-year-old. Yeah. Youngest Olympic champion in United States history as a 20-year-old. So I think it's just tough to argue with the success that those guys had. And then, you start seeing a Spencer Lee come out, and he was a training partner for Neil Dennis, in 2016 for the Olympics in Rio. And, we saw him winning junior world title. I forgot about that. Yeah. And, Daniel Dennis tells the story that, 1 week before he's wrestling the Olympics, Spencer Lee is legitimately beating him. In a practice match. And then, you see Spencer as a cadet. He was a cadet age group. He won the junior worlds. And then he came back and won the junior worlds the next year. And clearly we just saw him win the Sullivan Award. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think you see the success of those guys, and I could keep going, but, Yanni Diakomahala started coming out and training with the with the Reese Humphreys and the Frank Molinaros, and we saw him become a cadet world champion.
So let me ask you this. How hard was it to get, and maybe it's not hard at all, because I know I probably would have done this, and I love coaching, that's why I still am, but to get the older guys to, and maybe they didn't, to get the older guys to spend time with younger guys and help them out and take some type of interest in their development, was that was that a challenge, or was it just something that happened naturally?
To be candid, it really wasn't a challenge at all. And I think that just speaks to the guys we had on our team. I don't think we really had a lot of prima donnas. I mean, I think back of how Jordan Burroughs welcomed Mark Hall in and chose him to train with frequently, and then chose him to be one of his training partners for the World Championships in 2015. So 2015 in Vegas, Jordan Burroughs chose Mark Hall to say, hey, I like you so much. I like your feel so much. I want you to be my training partner. Yeah. And so not only was it not a challenge, I think in many ways the older guys said, hey, these young guys are hungry. They're willing to learn. They're respectful. Or sometimes, the older guys can be stuck in their ways and they don't want to, they're not coachable and they're just going to do things they want to do it the way they want to do it. But the young guys were like, hey, just please teach me. And I want to be the best in the world. And they were really like malleable. Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I guess, and I know it changed a little later on. And I don't know how it was, in 2000 for you, but when I was on the team, nobody my weight was there. Now I know they do training camps. So it's like everyone is required to be there. But in my year, 2008, number 2 wasn't there, number 3 wasn't there, number 4 wasn't there. I think the only guy in my weight class that was at any of the camps was Ryan Chirella, and that was because Andy Rovat made the team at the weight class above me, and I believe he was the only guy that was actually there at my weight class.
Yeah, I mean, I think back, my time in 2000, as you and I talked in the last show, I got to choose a training partner to come with me, and I chose Ryan Dolph because he happened to be the alternate, but he was my coach and a friend, and so he clearly was there. But a lot of the guys around my weight class, below and above, were there. The Les Gutches and the Charles Burton. Charles Burton's clearly on the Olympic team. Yeah. The Casey Cunningham, he hung around and was a great resource for me, mimicking Satiyev's style. So I was really, I'm thankful that I had a good amount of guys to train with then.
Yeah. Some of those. Yeah, that's awesome that there's so many young guys out there now. Okay, so now that program, I think it's actually becoming an official program. It's called Elite Athletes Programs. Kevin Jackson heads it up. They have, I don't know, I think like 5 guys out there now living full time. Is that something that you see that could become even larger? Or do you think, obviously it's hard to convince a high school kid to leave your high school team and you're not going to wrestle in high school matches anymore and you're not going to do any of that stuff and you're just going to come and train freestyle and, do a couple tournaments a year. So you think that's something that can grow or you think that's kind of where it's at?
I think it's something could grow, but like we talked on our last podcast, a lot of that has to do with how many beds you're going to get at the Olympic Training Center, right? So if you can get a bed with free rent and free food for the athlete to be there during that year, I think it's worth analyzing. But if there's no more beds available or they cap you at like, 4 or 5 or 6 beds, it makes it harder to grow. And I think that's where right now Kevin Jackson has to be so selective because he doesn't have, 20 beds. He has, I think he has 6. He has to be really selective with who he brings out. But then per everything we've been talking about the last few minutes, the thing that makes those developmental guys better is they have to have senior level guys around them. So, if you don't have a good number of senior level guys around you, then I don't think those guys develop as fast. So then you got to analyze, well, who's at the Olympic Training Center? And we know that Jay Fox is there now, and clearly there's some Greco guys there now. But it's important to make sure that you have some senior level guys because those young guys, elite athlete program, they're going to get better at the national team camps, the world team camps, Olympic camps. But they also need on a daily basis, it's important to have some of those senior level guys around because – for example, without Dustin Kilgore, John Reeder, and I think Kyle Snyder would totally agree with this. Yeah. Without those 2 guys, he wouldn't have developed as fast. Sure. Right? Yeah. I mean, Mark Hall, without a Chase Pammy on a daily basis, who's second in the NCAAs, he's got 4th in the World Team Trials 2 years in a row. Yep. Without a Chase Pammy every day, Mark Hall, I don't know if he would develop this fast. So you got to have a mix of the senior level guys with those developmental guys, I think, for it to really, really click on all cylinders. Yeah,
that makes sense. And the other thing I guess I didn't even think about when I asked the question, but as I was thinking about it and when you were speaking, the other thing is now there's all these RTCs everywhere. So high school kids have the ability to go to their, I believe it's a 100-mile radius.
250.
250. Yeah, you're right. 250. And, because my kids go up there. And, it's awesome because actually we have we have 5 academies, but we opened 2 of them like a week before coronavirus, unfortunately. Damn it. Yeah, terrible. Who planned? Someone should have planned the coronavirus out a little better. Jeez Louise. But like last fall, we've all 3 of our academies, and so it's a great opportunity for all of our academy kids to be there with each other and with the college level wrestlers. So today now, high school kids across the country have that option also, which wasn't available 10 years ago or maybe even 8 years ago.
Well, it's important to know that those high school wrestlers, though, they have to meet a criteria.
Yeah, sure.
So the new criteria is they have to be top 6 in their state tournament in cadet or junior freestyle or Greco.
Yep.
So they took the folk style criteria out, which used to be, right? So it's like you used to have success in folk style to qualify for the Olympic Training Center. And I think they realized that wasn't the best way to do it. You need to encourage wrestlers to wrestle freestyle and Greco, right, in cadets and juniors.
Yeah.
So now if you're top 6 and you kind of check that criteria box, then within 250 miles of you, your nearest RTC, you can go in and train with Olympic hopefuls, college wrestlers, right, that are RTC qualifiers as well.
Absolutely.
So I think about around us in Philadelphia, I'm thankful. I feel like we're in a very rich region.
Yeah, you are.
With Pennsylvania, New Jersey, clearly Delaware, northern, Virginia, big chunk of New York, right, Long Island.
Yeah.
I mean, all those wrestlers that are RTC.
Wait, you guys go all the way up to Long Island? 250 mile radius?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I mean, Long Island's you can be in Long Island 2 hours.
Wow. Okay.
From Philly. Yeah. So that region, if you really look at one of those flow wrestling,
hotbeds.
Hotbeds, heat charts, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of, I think, the best regions in the country. And so all those wrestlers, they can go to the New Jersey RTC. They can go to, a lot of them go to the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club, right? A lot of them can go to, in the middle of the state of Pennsylvania, they go to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club.
Yeah.
Right. So they can get up and go to the New York City RTC with Kendall. Yeah. So there's just some fantastic.
Dang, I didn't even think about the dynamics.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of wrestlers, they take advantage. They're like, I went to New Jersey RTC on Sunday, and they come to the Pennsylvania RTC on Tuesday night. Yeah. And then some of them, they live out near Allentown, Bethlehem. They'll go to the Lehigh Valley Wrestling Club. Yeah. And some of these kids, you look back and they're taking full advantage of this RTC model, which again, if somebody says, what do you think, how come USA Wrestling, Team USA and freestyle, in the last 8 years has really gotten better? How come they're winning world championships? They're getting in the top 3 every year. I would say I'm a true believer. I'm biased, but I just think this RTC model is one of the biggest reasons why.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think there's a lot of reasons, but I definitely think that's one of them. You know what? Obviously, here in Wisconsin, we have one, which is the Wisconsin RTC, and I didn't even think about the dynamics of that East Coast. And I don't know why, because I'm a damn geography major. Shit thought of this, but yeah, kids out there. I mean, they can have multiple world-class coaches. You could have Olympic champion Brandon Slay or Olympic champion Kendall Cross. I mean, you go to the Lehigh Valley RTC, you could have Reese Humphrey coach you. I mean, in that type of area, you could take advantage of a lot of them.
A lot of them, and I think a lot of those kids and again, they're just developing faster. And then I think the interesting thing is that at least from our RTC, I really try my best to make sure these kids understand, hey, there's the Cadet World Team Trials, there's the Junior World Team Trials, to plant the seed of making a Cadet World Team, making a Junior World Team, that this is an Olympic training center that's certified by USA Wrestling, and to make sure that I plant that Olympic seed in their brain that, I know you want to become a state champion, and I know you want to wrestle in college and be an NCAA champion, but I hope some of you here, when I talk to them listening, I hope you Olympic champions. Yeah. We just need more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I guess if you want to add to things, I know one of the things that you mentioned, with all these RTCs, that the 15 under, 15 under is new, 17 under, and then 20 under, they're getting better. One of the other things I would throw in is, I know when I was a kid, they weren't as big of a deal. And I don't know if it's Flow broadcasting them live or what it is, or making a big deal of kids winning the world. But I can tell you, I made the junior world team in 2004 we didn't even go to the World Championships. As crazy as that may sound, but they just weren't. I competed in the cadet. It was FILA cadets, because it was in Chicago every year. I mean, right? That's a really close drive from my house. Yeah, it's easy to get to. But if it was somewhere else, it wasn't really a big deal. I mean, we didn't think of it as like this hugely prestigious tournament that we had to go to.
Well, I think success begets success. And so when we started having, let's say in 2014, I think out of those 10 weight classes, we won 7 medals and we got second in the world. And then all of a sudden, again, then you add in media, you add in Flow, telling the world about that. And they did a little documentary on our world team that went to Croatia that year.
Yeah, I remember that.
Where Aaron Pico lost to Yazdani, right, in the finals.
That was a good year.
Yeah, so they did a little Flow film on that. So then again, the wrestling world, they get a chance to watch that, and then these young wrestlers, developmental guys, watch that and they go, I want to make the cadet world team. I want to make the junior world team. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just that success begets success.
Yeah. Okay, so at what year? I don't even know exactly what year, but what year did you decide to go back to the Penn RTC, and what drew you back? Because obviously you had the collegiate career there, but then you were gone for quite a while. I mean, 15 years or so. What drew you back?
Well, first I'd say I never saw myself moving back to the Northeast.
Really?
That wasn't part of my plan. If all my friends would have told you, he never said he was going to do that. Yeah. But I think what happened is after, working for USA Wrestling, and I feel like I put my 8 years in, my 2 Olympics, London and Rio, and I was married and I had 3 kids at the time. Yeah. But I was traveling about over 100 days a year.
Damn.
And so really? I think part of it, my wife was like, is there anything else you can do on the planet, right? And I was
It's a fair question, Brandon.
It's a fair question. And I was on the board of the PRTC at the time.
Okay.
And so they would hear me talk about my travels, and finally one of the board members, Clinton Motter, actually said, hey, there's an elephant in the room. Would you ever consider moving back to Philly and not only being the coach, but being the executive director of this nonprofit? And I think that was the thing that got me, because if it would just been moving to Philly just to coach wrestling, I think I probably would have decided maybe to stay put in Colorado Springs. But there was this idea of being a coach, but also learning how to be an executive director of an organization. And, I'm 44 now, so that would have been, I was a little over 40 then. And I wanted to continue to sharpen my sword. And I actually got a degree in entrepreneurial management in college at Penn, at the Wharton School of Business. And so I'd always had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that was a big part of it. And another part of it was, as I said, hey, how much am I going to have to travel? And they're like, well, you're the executive director. I mean, you're going to lead the organization. You make a decision when you need to travel. And so I think that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I think my wife was really thankful that I wasn't going to have to travel as much. And we had 3 girls at the time, which you and I talked about. And she's like, we're definitely not trying for another boy unless, you find a way to travel less.
Seriously.
So, I moved up here to Pennsylvania and took the job at the PRTC. And, thankfully she got pregnant again and we finally did have a boy. So I moved up to wrestling country up here and I had a little boy. So that was a big part of the transition. And another big part of it then was, I say this very respectfully to the state of Colorado and around Colorado Springs. I just say it with a lot of respect, but it's not the same wrestling environment as Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
I get it.
So I felt like the ability to really impact wrestling in a positive way was going to be a lot higher up here in this area.
Yeah.
And, we didn't have the same ability to do that at the Olympic Training Center because over time, because the rules of safety, you couldn't just let any high school wrestler come in and train at the OTC. Yeah. I thought I'd have badges and you had to put them on a plan for the day. And it wasn't really user friendly to bring in 50 of the best high school kids in the area to Colorado. It just wasn't happening. Where now with the RTCs, you have the ability to do that. I mean, we have some of these high school practices. I mean, we'll put 50 or 60 high school kids in the room. We have to run live wrestling in 2 different groups. Yeah. Just out of safety. So again, it's a high class problem to have. So, that was a big part of it too, is I think impact.
Yeah, that's you make great points there. Okay, so when you move back to the Penn RTC, I don't even know how many guys you have right now. I feel like you guys have a boatload. Who was there when you started? And now, I know you just added, who'd you add? McFadden, and you just added, who else? A couple others.
So So we had a Ben Honus, who was second in
saw
the U.S.
him.
Open in 2019. And so when I first started, the only guy of the PRTC that was going to continue to be there was Richard Perry.
Okay.
So they had Richard Perry and Danny Mitchell, and Danny Mitchell was retiring going in after 2016. So when I first took the job, it was just Richard Perry. And then Chase Pammy decided to follow me from the Olympic Training Center to come up. And then we recruited BJ Futrell, and we recruited Dan Valmont. So for that really quad from 2016 to really working towards 2020, we were those 4 wrestlers. And weight class order, we had BJ Futrell at 65, Chase wrestled 70, Dan Valmont wrestled 74, and Richard Perry wrestled 86. So for the most part, those were kind of my 4 horsemen for those, for those almost 4 years. And now we're clearly transitioning, looking toward the next quad in Paris. And, we're evaluating the new wrestlers to recruit, and we'll continue to build our culture. So we added Dave McFadden at 74, 79 kilos. We added Ben Honus at 97 kilos. And, we're just continuing to grow our program.
Nice. So how do you guys, how do you guys do the high school practice? I know, Wisconsin, one of the things we did, so people could travel, we moved one of the practices back significantly in time. So that way, high school kids have the ability to actually get there, besides the real close kids. Do you guys do something like that every night? Is it once a week, or how do you guys do it?
So what we do, because, we're uniquely partnered with Drexel University, which I don't know if you've been to Philly. They literally are 1 block away.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So Penn and Drexel are they're connected. So what we do is on Tuesday night, we have practice at Penn at 5:30 p.m. That allows high school wrestlers to get out of school, gives their parents a little leeway to get them to practice. So we go Tuesday night at Penn at 5:30, Thursday night at Drexel at 5:30, and then we alternate Sundays. So it's Penn at 1:30 on Sunday, then it's Drexel the next Sunday at 1:30.
Nice.
So we try to alternate. That way high school wrestlers can experience both rooms. And what I mean by that is that when they come to the PRTC at Penn, they'll have more of a Penn wrestling coach flavor. Coach Rayner, Brian Pearsall, Chase Pammy, May Bethea will be around. We just tend to do it that way. And then
that's fair.
That gives their coaches, Coach Azevedo, Coach Schaefer, Coach Jeva, they'll be around. And so, again, that's just, I think, great resource for these high school wrestlers, because you get to spend time with twice as many Division I coaches.
Yeah.
And then I do my best to set the curriculum. So I'll set the curriculum out from, say, September all the way to the middle of November of what we're going to work on each and every practice, and which coaches are going to be the number 1 coaches, number 2 coaches, and then what the practice plan is of the technique to be shown.
Yeah.
And I put that in an Excel spreadsheet, and we all get that. We meet together, and we sign off on it. And just to be clear, these high school wrestlers, they can only train at RTCs outside of their season.
Correct. Outside the college season, correct? So it's
outside of their high school season.
I thought it was
their high school season. No.
Really?
So it's whenever their high school season officially starts in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, they can no longer come to the PRTC. And then once their high school season's over, their state tournament's over, then typically around the 1st of April, right, is when we have our freestyle Greco kickoff practice. And then all those high school wrestlers can come back from April all the way to, we typically go till the 1st of July. And that's our last practice before Fargo. Yeah. And we don't do that much at all during August.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool.
So that's the training. That's pretty much the rhythm that we follow.
Nice. So I guess obviously besides the college coaches, is there another coach on staff at the PRTC? I couldn't think of one.
No, it's just, as far as I'm the only coach on staff that gets paid to be the PRTC. Yeah. But all the other coaches, it's just a mix of all the clearly Penn coaches, Coach Rayner, Brian Pearsall, Chase Pammy, and then the coaches at Drexel, which are Matt Azevedo, Zach Schaefer, and Josh Jeva. And the great thing about Matt Azevedo, which a lot of people don't know, is, he loves freestyling. And he actually was the only guy that he beat Henry Cejudo the year Henry won gold medal in 2008. So Matt Azevedo
pinned him, right? Didn't he pin him?
On the U.S. Open Finals.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I know he beat him that year. It was the U.S. Open champ in freestyle. So that's another coach you have, working with the guys, which I think, again, I think it's just a unique situation for a high school sophomore who, let's say, gets second in the state of New Jersey. So he's an RTC qualifier. He gets to come into that environment and be coached by coaches with a lot of experience.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so You wanted to yell at me about some comments I made about RTCs last week. So I'll give you the floor first, and then we'll debate, discuss, talk about. We'll see where it goes. I'm sure we'll have fun with it.
Well, I think as somebody that was around from the beginning of the RTC, call it movement, I see them in a different way than I think what I heard you communicate the other day. I heard you communicate on FRL that you believe that the RTCs were I heard you say just charities, right? And I guess I just see RTCs in a different way. And, when I think about a charity, I know it's semantics. It's how you're going to define what charity is. It's important to define terms. But when I think of a charity, I think about an organization that if people, if they can't eat, they get to go to a food bank. And without that food bank, they would starve. Yeah. I think about organizations that provide clothing to those who can't, clothe themselves. I think about the St. Jude Children's Hospital for kids who have cancer. And without St. Jude, they wouldn't be able to get cancer treatment. Like, that's kind of how I think of a charity, just based on a need that these individuals, they have such a strong need. And without the charity, they would be in dire straits. So, and I guess I just do not think about RTCs that way. And from our perspective, I think about RTCs as these organizations, and what we call ours is this ecosystem. And we have a mission to enrich lives locally and globally through the sport of wrestling. And we have values of faith over fear, full effort, struggle well, and serve others, right? And we take that mission and we connect that mission to Penn Wrestling, Drexel Wrestling, and Beat the Streets Philly, that has over 1,000 inner city kids that they pour into. And you add the PRTC to that, and all four of those organizations, they make up what we're calling the Philly wrestling ecosystem. And we really try to go out in Philadelphia and use the sport of wrestling to really be a light. And as Beat the Streets Philly would say, alter life's trajectory, right? As wrestling would say, to champion your life. As the PRTC would say, is to enrich your life. And so I guess I just don't feel like, the PRTC is just a charity sitting in Philly. Yeah. That, gosh, without us, Richard Perry and Chase Pammy and BJ Futrell, they couldn't wrestle, and they'd be in dire straits without our support. Yeah. I just don't see us that way.
So to quantify what I said, and what I was talking about is they were saying the girls, which I still don't know the truth, but they said brands were asking the girls they're no longer welcome, essentially, which there's a lot of gray area there. And, what I was saying is that the athletes, they don't have a right to this money, right? And if they did, then they could go earn it somewhere else. And, I'm happy that the RTC system, and I think you're totally right that it's built American wrestling up to where, we're one of the top 2 or 3 in the world every single year. And obviously, as a college coach, I see the value that it provides to the college coaches and everyone else. Where I see the issue is when we talk about professional wrestling, which I failed at twice, is these guys that have this inflated sense of what type of income they should be deriving, and when you're talking about a professional sport, it's how many sales how many seats can you sell, how many pay-per-views can you sell, that's how much money you're making. And then out of that you see, well, unless you want to lose money, this is what all the athletes are worth. And when I tried doing that the multiple times, what they thought they were worth was inflated compared to what I knew that they brought in. And so that was the struggle I always had, was just like, okay, well, they have these inflated senses of what they're worth versus what we were actually bringing in. And I did 9 or 10 events between the two promotions. We lost money every single time. And so that was where I struggled with. But yeah, I definitely see your point. And obviously, part of the Wisconsin RTC, and I see the good that we do and how we're able to have all these kids from all over the state come in and practice. And, I think with what you guys are tying in over there, you're probably even doing more within the community than we are.
Well, but I think we just use the term unique, just being in a large city we have Beat the Streets Philly a few blocks away, and it's rare that you could have 2 Division I wrestling programs so close. Yeah. And so when you add this Olympic Training Center, the PRTC, to that, just because of the uniqueness of all 4 of those organizations, it creates an opportunity to use wrestling to literally change lives. To literally build character and leadership I mean, I think back when BJ Futrell was here, he was tutoring some of these Beat the Streets Philly kids late at night.
Damn, that's awesome.
And, I think about, Dan Valmont going to the Police Athletic League and working with kids once a week. And I think about the impact that Richard Perry now has had to a lot of these Beat the Streets Philly kids, looking at how he's overcoming the challenges in his life. And so I think if we see it in the right way, if we see these RTCs in the right way, and you put together the right leaders, we really can make a huge difference through the sport of wrestling. We really can look back 10, 20 years from now and we go, that organizations, if done correctly with synergistic values, there's going to be young wrestlers that are going to go, with that organization, Beat the Streets Philly, and the PRTC wrestlers that were mentoring me, and the academic dreams I had seeing Penn and Drexel so close, that gave me hope, right, to get out of the inner city.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why I'm really excited to be back, to continue to add to answer that question. That's why I'm really excited to be back in this area, because they really care about wrestling. It's not hard when you do a wrestling clinic to get wrestlers to come over from New Jersey and in the Philadelphia area, kids that really want to learn from you. I say it. I don't want to use names but I've heard some RTC wrestlers tell me that they've tried to have developmental programs, where they ask some of the high school wrestlers to come in and learn from them. And, you have two or three high school wrestlers show up. And, we have a Tuesday night, and there'll literally be in this particular region area. We'll have 40, 50 high school wrestlers that their parents bring them and they're so excited to learn. And I think when you teach wrestling, but then at the end, if you end up get them together, and I call it leadership talk, you pick a word like integrity and you define it, and you break it down, you talk about how important that is to do that. I just think those parents, I get emails all the time. Again, not lately because we're not running practice.
I know it sucks, right?
It does. In the past, where they'd say like, "Hey, I appreciate all the wrestling technique y'all showed, but when you talked about how important integrity was to live what you say, like integer one, right? That you say one thing, that you do that one thing. I can't tell you, Brandon. I tell my son that all the time, but to have a wrestling coach also say that, I'm going to bring him every Tuesday night. I think again that's back to, we're not just teaching high crotches here.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's important to have a mission, and it's important to have values, and that's your plumb line. And that's when you go to work every day, that's your why. That's why I'm showing up to work. And when things get tough and, you're fundraising and, you think about adding new athletes to your team, all that, you got to keep coming back to like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And I think that's why mission and values are so important.
Yeah. Damn, you made me miss it. Oh, we used to last spring and fall we packed the room with high school kids at the RTC also, and obviously I have my club 5 minutes down the road, and I have not got to coach at all, and it's man, you miss it, right? You miss these tournaments. I think like last weekend I would have been at Freestyle and Greco State on Saturday and Sunday. Didn't get to do any of that, and a week we'd be going to Northern Plains, and then obviously we have 2 weeks ago to be WWPS. Okay, now I'm just being sad, I guess.
Well, I would tell you, and I don't know if you've done this yet. I'm sure you've been doing this somewhat, but it's caused me to do some things though I wasn't doing before. Like I have Zoom appointments set up a lot of my wrestlers where, for example, like on Tuesdays, I'm watching video on Zoom where I'm using my video library, or have my hard drives here, and we were going back and watching the Olympics in 2012, and we were going over matches at 60 kilo, and I was doing that with Ethan Lezak. And on Thursday, I did it with Joey McKenna. We were watching 66 kilos from the 2012 Olympics, and I wasn't doing a lot of Zoom 101 technique meetings with my wrestlers before, because you could do it in person. But I've also found there's actually this really independent, focused value to do that as well, which it's caused me to think, even when we get back together, I think it's still going to be important that we can continue to do some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was for a while. My brother and I was doing 2 days a week. He was doing 2 days a week of online practices on our AWA page, and where we actually would run through the practice, and we'd say, hey, pause it, and drill this for 5 minutes to show the technique. But we have my daughter was my only partner on Ford. You know how hard it is to wrestle on a 7-year-old that weighs 45 pounds? It's really tough to show moves.
Yes.
Yeah, and then You know, I had a skin issue pop up one week, and I didn't want to give that to her, so I said, you know, okay, we're gonna take a break on this. We got quarantine problems over here.
Oh, that's funny.
So, okay, you got anything else for us?
No, I think that's it. I think it's just a lot of these people that thinks RTC should go away. I just think they need to step back and realize and look at how Team USA is doing.
Yeah.
And they say that they want them to go away, but I would say, what's your suggestion?
Yeah.
Like, how are we going to have professional wrestlers where they're not having to be assistant coaches and travel to all the dual meets and go to all the tournaments and try to train for the Worlds and Olympics at the same time? Like, what's your suggestion? Because I think this is just a very creative way for us to raise nonprofit funds, pay them full-time salaries.
Yep.
But just like you said, it creates a market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as somebody gets paid this, the price of chickens go up, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which guys are getting paid more to train to be full-time wrestlers, which that just means people like us have to work harder.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really positive thing.
Yeah. Well, I agree. We appreciate you taking time, not one, but 2 Mondays in a row. We thank you. To my RUDIS listeners, we're going to take a couple weeks off working on some cool things at RUDIS, and we'll have updates with you. Brandon, that's all I got. Appreciate it again. Thanks a lot, and everyone have a good day.
Take care, Ben.
Peace.